welcome to the House of Hammer. Delightful of you to call upon us again. My goodness me, you're visiting so often these days that we might have to start charging you rent. Now there's an idea. Maybe we should be advertising the House of Hammer on Scarebnb. I'll ask Secretary Taylorson to see to that. What do we have in store for you this time? Well, a visit to room 18. Yes, we've finally come of age. We can finally drink whiskey and vote, and become angry at the way that other people have voted, the defining characteristics of all adults these days. Today's business, though, is excitement. Boys crave it, and as today's film goes to prove by some margin, ladies crave it too. Our collective hearts are all aflutter this time round due to the highly anticipated return of Hammer heroine, Hy Hazell. Yes, Celia herself is back with a bang for Hammer's 1950 comedy adventure, The Lady Craved Excitement. I don't know about you, but the prospect of an all-time high in the company of Hy certainly has me rather excited. But when it comes to the film itself, is it a case of pure excitement or pure excitement? Well, keep it here and we'll no doubt thrill you with our deep dives into things like the history of excitement, or how to get the best out of your copper wiring or something. Now, The Lady Craved Excitement doesn't just feature a return engagement from Celia's star, Hy Hazell. It also features a return from Celia's director, Francis Searle. He's the man who's so far given us such gems as not just Celia, but The Man in Black, Case for PC-49, he's proving to be more than qualified as a Hammer hero. Kev's talked about the man himself in a previous installment, and this seemed like the perfect time to continue the saga. And so with more on this remarkable man, here's Kev more on this remarkable man.
A while ago, I started to tell you the story of Francis Searle, the director of the film we're featuring in this particular chapter. As promised, I'm here to finish what I started. I had to leave it there though because there was just too much to cram in. As the end of the war drew closer, his final works were the film's Student Nurse and Sports Day that came to the attention of a gentleman called Sidney Box. Along with his wife Muriel, they were quickly becoming very much a British film power couple. Sidney was more the writer and producer type, while Muriel was more the writer and director. Either way, they were both equally capable of anything needed to make a movie. And like Francis, Sidney Box could spot talent. Francis was invited to dinner with them, where he was offered a chance to direct their latest project, A Girl in a Million. It's a frothy romantic comedy starring Hugh Williams, Joan Greenwood, and the dynamic double act of Naunton and Wayne. This suited Searle's tastes perfectly, and the film went on to be a well-received and financial success. His transition from short subject and ad man to film director was complete, and he was keen to follow his debut feature. So the next year, he directed the farcical horror comedy Things Happen at Night. It's originally a play called The Poltergeist, and it's another one that plays to most of his tastes, except for the horror part, which I'll get to in a bit. During this time, Francis was a member of the Albany Club in London, which just so happened to be a regular haunt for the head honchos of Hammer. Possibly because of this, Searle became a resident director for the studio, and beginning with Celia, he crammed in 9 films between 1949 and 1952, which also probably explains why he lived on site at the studios at Cookham Dean and Oakley Court. And while I'm talking about Oakley Court, he knew exactly how to get the most out of a cramped environment with a wide-angle lens, and was happy to let everyone else in on it too. Always the consummate professional, he would insist on read-throughs and occasionally tweak the scripts to the shooting conditions he would be faced with. This also gave the artists time to get to know each other, and for him to make sure that the casting actually worked. The importance of Francis Searle and his part in making Hammer the legend it is today can't be overstated. Not only was he a safe pair of hands when it came to directing, he was also the go-to guy when Exclusive signed an ambitious package deal with Lippert Pictures in America that saw the company flourish as they would begin regularly importing overseas talent. All this from a gentleman's understanding during these formative years of Hammer. Francis Searle never signed a contract. A handshake was good enough. This worked in favour for both Francis and Hammer as we skip forward to 1957 and a while after the arrival of future Hammer hero Terence Fisher. Searle and Fisher became partners in their own production company, Delta Films, and would regularly work on their own projects outside of the confines of Hammer. While the gritty crime dramas had been central to the studio's focus, they were now starting to give horror films more of a go, and he realised the studio was starting to move in a direction he wasn't particularly fond of. As a shining example of how far apart they'd grown, in May of the same year that we have The Curse of Frankenstein and The Abominable Snowman, Hammer released the children's short film A Day of Grace. It's the story of an orphan boy and his love for an old sheepdog, and it's co-written, produced and directed by Francis Searle. In what appears to be an echo of his formative years, 1958's Murder at Site 3, the last film with exclusive, would also be Hammer's final lost film. The days of slapstick, farce and Michael Medwin's insane grin were numbered. This meant that even though he'd only worked at the studio for a short period, it was time for Francis Searle to once again move on. He continued to work on many short films. Among these is one called Emergency from 1962 that you will not believe. I've never seen so much happen in 1 hour. During the 60s, the demand for short films started to dwindle, and so did Francis Searle's illustrious career. In later interviews, he regretted not only being too honest for the cutthroat film business, but also never making the move over to television, which at the time was frowned upon by many in the film industry. Even well into his 80s, he still had a razor-sharp wit and a pet project in the works whenever he turned up at a Hammer convention. I recommend that if you get a chance, dig deeper into the works of Francis Searle. There's a reason why he was such an important figure in the history of Hammer. When he left the studio and had more time and money to do what he wanted, it's not hard to see how incredibly talented he was.
As you say, Kev, a true talent, and one we'll be hearing from again very soon. Incidentally, everyone, I must break away ever so slightly here to point out that your humble hosts here at the House of Hammer are not just exclusive, no pun intended, to this podcast. Kev, the fountain of all knowledge and regular user of the actual Fountain of Youth, is the host and producer of such hit podcasts as the wonderful Film Guff and the incredible Amicus Lies Here podcasts. So do go and check those out. Ben and Smokey are the co-hosts of the finest horror podcast out there, Rated H, which has been recently recognised as an area of natural beauty by the National Trust. Also, Smokey and I sometimes duet on the podcast All the Best Lines, which is the squealing, squalling love child of all our cinematic endeavours. I myself host the regular Golden Age movie review and vintage showcase podcast Attaboy Clarence. If you love old, obscure schlock movies, then come on in. And my main job is the Secret History of Hollywood podcast. You know, that podcast that people tell you about from time to time, the one where the episodes are 16 hours long. Madness. Also the episodes that are being currently adapted to film. It's all very exciting. More on that later. The headline today, though, is that all of us have decided to cross-pollinate. Yes, over the coming months, we are drifting across the boundaries of good taste and good practice to appear on each other's shows, and the subject we've chosen as our weapon of choice is folk horror. Folk horror is that rarest of genres. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what you believe. Folk horror strikes at that most sacred of institutions, the community. It's the creature beneath the bed. It's the crick behind the wall. It's the shadow at the end of your garden. Folk horror is the legend you hear from your neighbour, the silhouette on the hill beyond. And so we decided that exploring the concept in cinema would keep the horror hounds amongst you occupied while we work our way towards the Hammer horror classics in the future. Therefore, I urge you to go now and subscribe to Film Guff, Here Lies Amicus, Attaboy Clarence, Rated H, and all the best lines. Over the course of the coming months, we'll all be appearing on each other's shows to talk about folk horror classics and how they haunt us. Beginning with an appearance from us all on Rated H. It's out right now, and we are talking about 1971's The Blood on Satan's Claw. Go and download it to hear the first of many conversations about folk horror in cinema. In the coming weeks and months, we'll also be discussing the likes of Curse of the Demon and The Wicker Man. And the links to all of our respective shows will be in the show notes of this episode. Before we move on here, though, we need to talk about the Lady Craved Excitement once more. Now, the plot revolves around Pat and Johnny, played by Hy Hazell and Michael Medwin, respectively. They are a cabaret act who would be getting along so well in the world of light entertainment if it wasn't for Pat's penchant for adventure and intrigue. Yes, every time Pat smells an adventure, she's insistent upon thrusting poor old Johnny into the fray.
She must have excitement. Well, for Pete's sake, can't we live without it for a day or two?
Johnny, look at this.
What's that?
If we could find that man...
Oh, don't start all that again. Haven't I
But
just...
Johnny, think of the publicity. Pat and Johnny, well-known cabaret act, make daring capture of escaped lunatic. We'd have our photographs in the paper. We'd have every manager in town running as fast as they can.
Away from us.
We'd be a sensation.
The adventure kicks off when a suspicious bearded patron of the nightclub that Pat and Johnny work at proclaims himself to be an artist. He wants Pat to pose as Anne Boleyn in a weird kind of pastiche piece he's creating. Thing is, he wants to use the original jewellery and crown that Anne Boleyn herself wore, or something.
For the last 5 years, I've been engaged in collecting authentic data for the reproduction of the tragic scene of the execution of Anne Boleyn. Until tonight, there was only one thing lacking to proceed with the great work, and that was Anne Boleyn. I cannot begin to tell you how closely you resemble her.
Before or after?
I am prepared to offer you the sum of £200 to pose for my picture of her execution.
£200?
300 then. Let us not demean the grandeur of this occasion by quibbling over trifles.
It is Anne Boleyn you intend to paint.
Of course. Who else?
Well, for £300, it's usually Lady Craved.
Cue a screwball series of zany set pieces in which Johnny is knocked out, Pat is knocked out, Johnny knocks someone else out, then someone else, and then he's knocked out again himself. And there's a strange climax in which Pat is dressed up like Anne Boleyn and chased around a room. But before we explore the many wonders or blunders of the Lady Craved Excitement, the question lingers over us: just how easy is it to knock someone out? After all, it happens not just frequently, but persistently in this film. To answer this burning question, let's hear from Smokey, a man who craves excitement so badly that he's been known to pay for it. Yes, you can regularly find him at Alton Towers theme park.
From time to time, here on the House of Hammer, your four humble hosts may use the show as a form of therapy. And I'm not just talking about the round table segment, which it could be argued is just a chance for four mates to get together and have a drink or 37 and eventually talk about a film they've all seen recently. No, I'm talking about that sometimes we use our segments or discussions to air our grievances, our worries, or letting a tiny nugget of information loose on the world. Some of these will be obvious, and some may have been a bit more on the subliminal side. Take Ben, for example. He made it pretty damn clear a few episodes ago about his frustration when it comes to cryptic crosswords and interfering little blokes on trains who try to help. Or then there's our Kev, a man so consumed with business plans and wobbly ladders that it borders on a daily obsession that no amount of Aldi 20% proof port could ever fully put to bed. And then there's our Adam, our Don and denizen of Golden Age cinema, so captivated and bewitched by fonts and logos that mere thoughts of building a time machine so he can be with Sally Gray fly right out of his head. Which inevitably brings us to yours truly, Smokey. Just Smokey. Like Eminem, but definitely not slim and most certainly shady. Some of my thoughts and exploits are rather well known to a few of you by now, and we certainly have no need to revisit them. But I am going to add something new to the ever-growing list, and get down on my knees and confess a sin to you all. I am a sucker for clickbait. Whew. That actually felt good to get off my chest. But back to my train of thought. Now that you've picked your jaws off the floor from this shocking revelation, I shall elaborate somewhat. I truly am a huge sucker for clickbait. No, it's true, I promise. I can be laid in bed at 3 a.m, snugly tucked under my He-Man duvet cover, doom scrolling my time away while I'm struggling to sleep, and I'll hit upon an article. What do these celebrities look like 30 years later? And I'm like, boom, that's gold. You have me, Mr. or Mrs. Writer who can barely write in English. I'm there for the next 10 minutes. But, and here's the pertinent bit, I always go for the 10 things you never knew about this movie, 20 actors who secretly hated each other, or, and most importantly, the top 10 movie cliches that annoy the out of us at crack.com. You get the usual, women waking up after a passionate evening of lovemaking and a hefty snooze, and bam! Perfect hair and makeup. Or the husband and wife waking up together, kissing and pretending that neither of them have morning breath that could cut through bank vaults. And this may be my favourite, mind you, getting knocked out by a punch or by slamming your head into a wall is not something you can shake off easily. In today's subject, the Lady Craved Excitement, there's a staggering amount of people getting knocked out, normally by a cosh or another similar blunt object. And, you can knock out Michael Medwin all you want, but you don't dare do it to our Hy Hazell. But getting knocked out is a legitimately serious business. This isn't the A-Team. You can't get out of a helicopter crash, shake your head and be on your way. You're getting twonked on the head, for Pete's sake. Yes, you have a skull, and it's a wonderful thing, but it isn't unbreakable. If it was, F1 drivers would keep the sponsorship caps on while they're driving. According to the experts, and I'm certainly going to listen to them, say that if you're out for more than 5 minutes, you phone a bloody ambulance. There's a massive chance that you have severe brain damage in that precious noggin of yours. A hit hard enough to keep you down that long? It means concussion, or worse, a traumatic brain injury, or your brain may be bleeding on the inside. Ugh. But think of some films for a minute. The Back to the Future trilogy, or Pulp Fiction, or hell, literally any James Bond movie. Think of the time it takes after being knocked out to wake up with no jeans on and your mum tending to your wounds. Or getting knocked out in a pawn shop and being carried to a basement and restrained. That is a serious amount of minutes that have passed, and you'll be lucky that you're not a drooling vegetable when you finally do come round. All I'm saying is, serious note now, okay? If you're ever unfortunate enough for this to occur to you, get yourself checked out, okay? We love you here at the House of Hammer, and we want you to come back, again and again. On a less serious note, seeing a horse getting knocked out in blazing saddles will always make me laugh longer and louder than Sid James ever did.
In The Lady Craved Excitement, we're treated to not just a return engagement from Hy Hazell, but also from Carry On's finest and everyone's favourite yoga murder victim in disguise from The Man in Black, Sid James. In the film, Sid plays a club owner called Carlo.
What's up?
Well, Carlo, look, I know.
All right, shut up! This woman, she's striking this man, no? All right, good.
Yes, in time-honoured tradition, South African-born English Rose, Sidney James, is playing an Italian.
You think, all of the time you think. This is the time I think. This is the last straw that breaks the collar's neck. You're finished. You're fired! Fired! Get out!
Now, as accents go, it isn't the worst Italian accent I've ever heard. I mean, that award still goes to Nicolas Cage in Captain Corelli's Mandolin.
If I do that, I'll start getting confused about when I'm supposed to come in. And that, in a concert hall, would be a disaster.
It's even worse when you consider that Nick Cage is actually part Italian. One of my personal favourite accents in the old movies comes from Belgian Mr. Victor Franzen, who is forced to talk like an Italian man in 1948's The Beast with the Five Fingers.
Don't leave me alone too long.
Mr. Conrad will stay with you.
I'll still be alone. I'm always alone with everyone. Except with her. Do you understand? Except with Julie.
Honestly, as much as we deride a bad accent in a film, let's be honest, we love to see it. And often when we're young, we don't understand why everyone else in the cinema is laughing during a dramatic moment. Really and honestly, I remember watching 1992's Far and Away and thinking that Tom Cruise was actually Irish.
Tell me you like my hat.
I'm not wearing a hat.
Say it. Say you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Why can't you say it, Shannon? Why can't you say you like my hat? Why can't you say you like my suit?
What can I say? I was young. But I do remember watching 1986's Highlander and feeling that something was off.
You look like a woman, you stupid haggis.
Haggis? What is haggis?
Sheep's stomach stuffed with meat and barley.
And what do you do with it?
You eat it. How revolting.
Now, of course, with the passage of time, I've come to realise that what was off was that French Christopher Lambert was apparently playing Scotsman, while actually Scottish Sean Connery was playing an Egyptian called Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, and he is apparently at your service. Sean Connery looms large in the world of bad accents. We had Greek in Time Bandits.
Well, you're certainly a chatty little fellow, aren't you?
We had Wild West American in Shalako.
They want you people out of here.
Why?
Because you don't belong here. Oh.
North African in The Wind and the Lion.
You are like the wind, and I like the lion. You form the tempest, the sand stings my eyes, and the ground is parched.
The first time he tried out his Irish accent was in Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Katie, when I need your help against the likes of that, I'll ask for it.
Pony Sugru would have killed you.
Would you care?
Not in the slightest.
You have no interest in me at all. You're certain sure?
And then he infamously resurrected it in The Untouchables.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
He was Russian, apparently, in The Hunt for Red October. But then again, so was Harrison Ford in K-19 The Widowmaker.
Excellent. Recommend we stay at safe depth, Captain. How thick is the ice here?
But at least Sean Connery could do Scottish, something that Harrison Ford couldn't seem to do in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Before time, do you intend to leave us standing on the doorstep all day with drenched? Oh, look, that gun and caught a sniffle.
Are you expected?
Do not take that tone with me, my good man. Now battle off and tell Baron Brunwell that Lord Clarence MacDonald and his lovely assistant are here to view the tapestries.
Tapestries?
Dear me, the man is dense. This is a castle, isn't it? There are tapestries.
This is a castle, and we have many tapestries. And if you are a Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse.
How dare he?
In fact, many of the worst accents in films seem to be from Hollywood titans trying to wrap their linguistic skills around the dialects of the British Isles. Here's Julia Roberts being Irish in Mary Riley.
He put a dark place in me, and I can't forgive him for that, but it's part of me now, and how can I regret what I am, though it often makes me sad.
Gerard Butler's also apparently Irish in P.S. I Love You.
You, all your colours. Do you remember the first thing you ever said to me?
I'm lost.
Oh, you didn't look lost. Not to me.
Kevin Costner is English in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
They got armour. They got armour, Paul? Even this boy can be taught to find the chinks in every suit of armour.
But we ain't got nothing to eat.
What do we need that the forest cannot provide? We have food, wood for weapons. We'll find safety in solace in our trees.
Yeah, but what about our kin? Sheriff's taking all they got, too.
And by God, we take it back.
My personal favourite English accent ever is Keanu Reeves' offering in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
But, sir, I know where the bastard sleeps. I brought him there. To Carfax Abbey.
But let's face it, the crown prince of bad accents has, and probably always will be, this man.
All right, ladies and gents, comical poem, suitable for the occasion, extemporized and thought up before your very eyes. All right, here we go. Room in for everyone, gather around. The constable's responsible. Now how does that sound?
I mean, when you really think about it, Is Sid James actually that bad? Now, much of the plot of the Lady Craved Excitement seems to revolve around the fact that Hy Hazell's Pat is on the lookout for adventure. This means searching out opportunities hither and thither. Hither and thither, I say. One of the important plot points of the film is that men who wear fake beards must have something to hide. Hy Hazell does tug on a few beards throughout the film's running time in the hopes of uncovering a murderer. Yes, really. It's a reach, I grant you, but seeing as how Smokey did a whole bit on knocking people unconscious and I did a piece on bad accents, Ben was either left with the history of excitement, which to be honest could have gotten very awkward, or a diversion into the world of fake beards. I mean, who wouldn't want that? It's a win all round, isn't it? Ben Taylorson could talk about the, history of the hand crank and make it exciting. So, for all you podcast listeners who've been waiting for someone to please produce an expose on the world of fake beards, your time has come. Ben's got your back. Sorry, your chin.
Early on in The Lady Craved Excitement, Hy Hazell's Pat attempts to yank the fake beard off a man she suspects to be an escaped lunatic. She is, however, scuppered by the fact that the beard is genuine. And this got me thinking about beards, and particularly fake beards, either donned by suspected lunatics or as a form of disguise, or for whatever other purpose. How long have fake beards been a thing? Well, join me on a brief foray down a short, hairy road. Ugh. But before we look at fake beards, a brief mention for the real thing. Since the dawn of mankind, there have been beards. Presumably. Although, that said, imagine if we were once a race of purely smooth-faced, hairless wonders, and then, one day, a guy walks into the cave and it's like, "Crikey, Dave, what's happened to your face?" And Dave's like, "I don't know, but all of a sudden I feel more dominant, powerful and mature." For these attributes, dear listener, are just some of those which are supposedly associated with the beard sporter. For further context, it is believed that in prehistoric times, men grew long beards for three main reasons. Firstly, for warmth, which seems logical. Secondly, for protection, as a thick, rich beard could help cushion a blow to the face from a neighbouring cave dweller if they popped over to try and steal your ox carcass and abscond with your mate. Linked to this is the third reason. Beards were a sign of intimidation. Much like the mane of the majestic lion, the beard creates a manlier, more testosterone-infused look by shaping the appearance of a thicker, stronger-looking jawline. In ancient Egypt, the beard was regarded as a symbol of wealth, power, and importance. The richest and most powerful men would have their beards dyed and plaited with interwoven gold thread. During the Middle Ages, a proper beard displayed a knight's virility, and the Catholic clergy, on the other hand, were always clean-shaven as a symbol of their celibacy. Throughout the centuries and in several parts of the world, being beardless was a sign of dishonour, and forcibly having it removed was punishment for everything from adultery to indebtedness. In 1535, King Henry VII established a beard tax as a convenient way to raise revenue. And he wasn't the only ruler in history to do this either. In 1698, Russian Tsar Peter the Great did exactly the same. So, it's clear that the historical significance of the humble beard cannot be dismissed. And this is perhaps even more evident when it comes to the military application of facial hair. Yes, for centuries, akin to ye olde knights of yore, soldiers from all over the world have been bearding up for battle and mustaching up for mass conflict. In the 18th and 19th centuries, French troops had very specific types of facial hair for different roles. During the First World War, French troops were known by the nickname poilu, meaning the hairy one, in reference to their various types of ever-present facial fuzz. Following this trend of undoubted virility and aggression, troops in the British Army were mandated to have a moustache from 1860 till 1916. Indeed, Command number 1695 of the King's Regulations read that the hair of the head will be kept short, the chin and underlip will be shaved, but not the upper lip. But I think that's quite enough about actual facial hair. Let's take a look at the history of fake beards. Surely, Ben, there's no such thing as a history of fake beards, I hear you cry. Wrong. All forms of postiche have an interesting origin story somewhere, and to prove it, let us head back once more to ancient Egypt. From as early as 3000 BC, Egyptian royalty used false beards made of metal. They were held onto the face by a ribbon that was tied over their heads. The practice was done by both kings and queens, so one can assume it didn't really look wholly convincing. So why did they do it? Well, supposedly it was a symbol of their connection to the gods, or indeed, one particular god. Charged with judging the deceased in the afterlife, according to the famed Egyptian Book of the Dead, the god Osiris appears in a number of surviving art pieces with a distinctly synthetic beard of his own. Thus, real-life pharaohs donned their man-made beards with the aim of linking themselves to the god's eternal reign by intimidating his appearance. This is all well and good, but it's quite a niche outing for the old fake beard. What other meanings have there been throughout history, I hear you not cry? Well, suspicions have regularly been aroused, and insults levelled at men who have proved unable to beard one off. In the 19th century, terms such as smock-faced and beardless boy were insults hurled at those poor men who wanted to join the beard club, but could not. Happily, though, cutting-edge technological advances meant there were some options. As well as supplying the theatrical and party trades, manufacturers of false hair pieces began moving into the facial hair wigs market, allowing rubber-faced bumfluff producers the chance to adorn a full, healthy beard. Better still, these were increasingly available to suit the latest fashionable styles. I mean, why grow one when you can just clag one on before a night out and pull all the birds with your 12-shilling counterfeit facial appendage? Now, let's return to the idea of fake beards as a theatrical accessory, as our understanding as to the primary function of a false beard lies here. And what is that function? Disguise. False beards, tied on with string or attached with glue, were a frequent and recurring feature in many of the disguise plots of early modern drama. Given what we've heard already about the onus placed on beards in relation to manhood, the old falsie could be used in dramatic context not only as a physical disguise, but to destabilise the meaning therein. If we assume certain characteristics because of a beardy face, there's a certain emotional punch to seeing it being peeled off to reveal an altogether different character underneath. All of that said, I think it's fair to say that the primary function of the false beard today is one of physical disguise. Or, if you're wanting something more subtle that you won't slop your soup down, you could always opt for a mere fake moustache. Did you know in Dayton, Ohio, there's a group who gathers to celebrate the joy of the fake moustache? And Kansas City is said to have the premier fake moustache club in North America with over 500 members. There's even an International Fake Moustache Day, held annually on the 3rd of March. But anyway, I'll save further moustache chat for a future segment, should we happen across a significant moustache in an upcoming Hammer presentation. Which we will. Surely. The Lady Craved Excitement represents something of a reunion already of some of the Hammer stars we've seen already. You've got Hy Hazell, Michael Medwin, Sid James and Danny Green. It was also written for radio by Edward J. Mason, who also wrote Celia as well. And I think it's as good a place as any to dive in, given that we've got Hy Hazell front and centre again. How do we think this compares to Celia?
I actually think this is a stronger demonstration of Hy Hazell's talents, because you not only get to see her as a all singing, all dancing, literally entertainer, you get to see her do a lot more dramatic stuff to a certain extent in some places, and I feel like she's really showing off her comic chops a hell of a lot in this film.
I would say she plays way more of a glamour girl in this film. And it's far more of a showy role. I don't think the material's as strong as Celia, but then again, Celia is a straight thriller and, a drama almost. This is whimsical at every moment. Even the villain, the arch villain of the piece is kind of one of those moustache twirling, leaping guys that I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the material is the big difference. Hy Hazell is as brilliant as she ever has been.
I completely agree. I can see where you're coming from about the comparisons with Celia. It's easy to do, obviously because of the inclusion of Hy Hazell, but also the thriller element to this of trying to foil a crime, basically. That's easy enough. I think we should start there with Hy Hazell. It's wonderful to have her back. She proves once again that she is an absolute star. It's her film.
Definitely.
The film belongs to her, and it was great to see her back. I would just like to start this off right from the very beginning and say how happy I was that this film had been missold to me as a musical, because it's not. And I was delighted that this was not a musical. We get 2 very brief musical numbers at the start, which I have to say were very charming in their sort of old-timey English ways, which I quite enjoyed. And then after that, it was sort of like, there's no more singing. I'm quite happy. So, it was just lovely to watch a little bit of a farce. But also was the fact that we mentioned this in the previous episode, which was that Hammer trying to find their feet in a comedy somehow with someone at the door and then what the butler saw, and it hasn't worked. And then try it again with this, and it works more than it has done in the previous 2, but you can tell they're definitely still finding their feet with it.
I think what I'd add is to do with my original sort of point is one, it gives Hy Hazell the opportunity to display more of her talents, as Smokey pointed out, in the musical numbers, which is something that she didn't really get to do in Celia. But I think the similarities between the two are too obvious to ignore. So that the character is very similar. I mean, she's someone who in this film she portrays she goes undercover effectively to portray a different character. She's head and shoulders above the men in terms of intelligence and drive and wit and her wanting to solve the crime. She gets into places she shouldn't be. She has a mischievous and playful side, yet she's also quite stoic as well. What she has here, though, is a sort of a comedic or a leading partner to play off in Michael Medwin, which is the main difference between this and Celia. And I don't think it improved it, but it did make it different enough to create a different experience. One thing I will say, though, is that going back to the source material, you can see that when something became popular, the writer would just think, let's just do that, but slightly differently, which is exactly what I feel we've got here.
I think my main not gripe with the film, but I think her character in this doesn't come across as smart as Celia. Like I know you said she's kind of resourceful. I think there's a difference between resourceful and cunning, and I think Celia, I mean, God, you never for 1 minute think she's going to get caught or get a fail at all. But in this, she kind of gets bopped on the head, and she's in a trunk, and she gets out, and she falls over, and she sort of lets her hair down for seducing a guy, and then it didn't work, and it's kind of she wanders into the whole Anne Boleyn side plot that will come to, and then spends the last sort of act being chased around the room with the guy, and it's kind of like she's great in the whole film, and I think she proves herself to be the real deal. I think she's such a good actress, and like one of the most. It's such a crying shame that people don't know more about her. But I do have to say the character in this, while she's brilliant, I think the character was a little bit like, oh God, I want excitement. Oh, I'm gonna run. She's a bit, I don't know, a bit annoying. I'm not saying she isn't good in the film, because she is. But but then again, I think most of the characters in this film are annoying. Michael Medwin, I still don't get Michael Medwin. Like I've seen him as an older actor in lots of more recent stuff, because he didn't die very long. I think he died in 2020 or something. And he was acting, sort of up until the 2010s, I think. And I've seen him in lots of stuff. And he looms large over British cinema, especially in this period, 50s and 60s. I mean, he's in Carry On movies. And he's like a cross between Norman Wisdom and Mickey Rooney. It's very weird. It's like he sort of stumbles about, and he's all, he's all gurning. But he has this boyish face, and it's. I think I find him really irritating in every film we've seen so far. Yeah. I just want to get out of the way, right? Watching Hy Hazell, get out of the way, watching Hy Hazell. And then the fact that he has the femme fatale lady swoon, trying to seduce him, and then Hy Hazell is inexplicably smitten with him all the way through. It just makes you. It's going to sound very wrong. Makes you resent him more. You just watch him and you go, come on. All he does is trip over. He kind of wants to cheat on Hy Hazell. He's unfunny. He messes up the plot. He doesn't really help at all. He gets, apart from smacking a few guys on the head. But at the end, you're just like, oh, God, I wish he hadn't been in the film. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get to Michael Medwin in a future film, and I go, that's great. But yeah, he just irritated the crap out of me.
I'm going to agree with you on that, but I will say, right, so compare this to his character in Someone at the Door.
Do I have
to? Yeah, just for 1 minute, just indulge me. Was that I hated him with a white hot passion in Someone at the Door. But this, right? Yeah, he was annoying. As you say, pretty much every character in this film is annoying. But in this, his annoyingness suited the character more. Do you not find? I didn't hate him as much in this at all. He was still a pain in the ass, but just not as much. And so I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for that.
I give you that. He isn't as annoying as in Someone at the Door. Yeah. But that isn't a great barometer.
No. Here, look, I'm just. I like to try and find the positives where I can, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
But also, the other one, the main one, is that we've been starved over the last. I don't know how many films it is now. It's maybe at least 5 films that we've done. Maybe 4 or 5 films now. We are back in a bar, gentlemen. Finally, yes. That's the more important thing. For the Hammer films.
Is it a bar? Are you talking about the scene at the beginning?
It's a bar. It's not a pub. It's a bar.
It looks like a tea room, doesn't it? It looks like a Tudor tea room.
Yeah, but weird. Then, when we were in France and all they'd done was painted a beret and a baguette on the wall, we said that was a bar. So, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. That was Le Bar.
It's actually,
Le Bar, sorry.
It's actually the front room of the
That's what France is.
Towers.
All I'm saying is, looking for the positives, I'm taking that as a bar/pub win, all right? That's all I'm saying.
The only reason that Michael Medwin is actually a bit more enjoyable in this is because he spends half of it absolutely sparked out when he's being cold-cocked round back at head by Danny. And to be honest, I wish I was Danny in this, because I'd be just giving him a right whack every time he actually did anything. I don't understand the whole dynamic between him and Hy Hazell. Obviously, he's a real catch, because all the women want to be with him, or at least rob him. I'm not sure what, or get him, to do something stupid for him. But
it would have made more sense if they were brother and sister.
Yeah, but I was just about to say, the chemistry between them is more like brother and sister. Sorry. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, they are like brother and sister, or a comedy duo, a comedy double act. Yeah. They're definitely not
just a partnership.
Yeah, they're definitely not at any time something you would see as romantic leads. No, they're definitely not romantic. They're definitely there just for comedy. A bit like Little and Large.
I'm sure they'd adore that comparison, Kev. Maybe they are brother and sister. Maybe that's the sinister undertone. What I would say to the listener is that if you've not heard it, if you go back to our Celia episode, we do a brief bio of Hy Hazell, which is quite revealing about her life and career. Moving on a little bit, I think Adam referenced this. The plot is quite convoluted, and some would say almost impenetrable on first viewing, because we have what should be a simple heist type movie that somehow gets us embroiled with a guy who wants to recreate the execution of Anne Boleyn, and quite how this segues or ties in neatly with the fact that the other 2 members of the trio are robbing a particular type of item. Watch closely, otherwise you'll miss it. It creates a very, very odd and convoluted plot where really, if we take a film like River Patrol, where it's a simple matter of smuggling goods to the continent, that's kind of what's happening here, but it's hidden behind this weird layer of this odd third character. Any thoughts on that?
It's probably my main gripe with this film. I didn't really understand what was happening. I understand the dynamics between the characters, and I understand that they're bad and they're good, and that she wants excitement and she's cried wolf a few times, so the inspector's disinclined to believe her. But what the hell is the whole Anne Boleyn thing about? I mean, I've seen this twice now. I don't understand at all. So, is an artist type guy, is he? Or is he mad? And he wants to paint a reenaction of Anne Boleyn's execution, so he imports the original. So, I mean, I watched it twice, and I was watching going, I don't understand I understand there's stolen art, and I understand that they shouldn't have stolen art, but I mean, was the painting bit necessary? You know, why did he even go up to her in the beginning and engage her in any... Like, was it, you know, you look like Anne Boleyn, I want to paint you or something? And then I got to the end of this today for the second time. I was like, did he want to paint her? Or is he just a madman like she suspected at the beginning? But if so, then why are the police after him? It's just stupefying. I can't get my head around the plot. It's befuddling. And I don't think any amount of rewatches...
For 300 quid, she could have been Lady Godiva. Don't forget that.
Do you want to take a whip round?
There's also a line where she actually phones Scotland Yard, because obviously she's got their phone number somehow, because at one point she actually says, I'm going to ring Scotland Yard now. And so you think...
It's Whitehall 1212.
Oh my God.
No, it was Whitehall 1212. There was a massive campaign at the time. Everyone knew Scotland Yard's number. It was Whitehall 1212.
Pause now, viewers. The number is flashing on your screen.
0898. Anyway, the fact that she's absolutely on fire with these adventures, you know, she's at one point she says, well, tell the inspector I'm the fire hose girl. He'll know what I mean. And he's like, oh, I want to see that adventure. I want to know that.
I want to know what that is.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just mental, the fact that she's just a bit odd, you know, and she's about as odd as Andrew Keir, you know, in the way that she's craving excitement for 300 quid.
Reasons.
I'll give you a second, Kev, to go and phone chat back, or whatever that number was you were trying to read.
27.
I think that the plot, okay, as far as I can tell, there's a missing element that we don't get. Because I've been thinking about this. Okay, so now brief spoilers, listener, if you're thoroughly interested in the minutiae of the plot of this. But our villains are revealed right at the very end to be smuggling art. They're stealing art and they're smuggling it to the continent. What appears to be the missing element of what the audience is told is it must be the Andrew Keir character who's doing the stealing, because they're placating his ridiculous whim of wanting to paint Anne Boleyn by they steal him the crown jewels and various other things that they then give him, and in turn, in literally a blink and you miss it scene, he hands them some paintings that he's got. So I think what is not said is he does the stealing, he provides the paintings, and they keep him happy. But why on earth do you need that unnecessary middle layer of nonsense? I have absolutely no idea.
Didn't anybody notice the crown jewels missing? That's the worrying part of this whole film.
And aren't they worth more than all these pictures put together? Surely.
Maybe he's some mad genius.
It's just I think his character in it is if he was in any way mysterious, it would be something. But because he's like he plays it so zany, it's I don't know, the tone is just it's a bit queasy for me. And that's to say, I don't think this is a hateful film. I don't think this isn't What the Butler Saw. This isn't Sporting Love. But I did watch it and go, you know, struggle to keep my interest. And the plot is just, I mean, it's just all over the place. And I think the messier a plot gets, the less involved you become, because she's a cabaret artist with her boyfriend, and she wants excitement and he's trying to keep her level-headed. She's cried wolf to the police a few times. There is a setup there, I think. I just don't think this was it.
I agree with that, but and also the fact is that right at the very beginning of the film, right, you get them looking at a newspaper headline.
Oh yeah,
saying about there's an escaped lunatic. He looks like this. He's a bloke with a beard, but it's false because you know he's concealing his identity and blah blah blah. Watch out for whoever someone who looks like this. And so when they're doing their cabaret act, they think they spy this escaped lunatic. Okay. She thinks it's him, tries to pull the beard off. It's not him. It's this nutter who wants to paint Anne Boleyn, right? And it goes off in the complete other direction, right? So instead of taking a straight road of going, they're looking for this escaped loon, okay, they can keep performing until one day he may turn up. All right? It's not exciting as much, but why take this drastic turn to go... it's not the escaped loon, but you have found another loon who is an artist, and also his sister is stealing crown jewels and Why? How the hell do you go from there to there? Also, if you think of it that way, the entire film starts on a MacGuffin, because the escaped lunatic, does he or doesn't he turn up at the end of the film?
I think that was just it was like a Chekhov's gun at the beginning, but like a punchline for the final curtain. I'm not that offended by the whole lunatic.
Well, I'm not offended by it, and it can't be a Chekhov's gun. It can't be a Chekhov's gun because they didn't use it, because it comes in at the end and the credits roll, so it wasn't even used.
I love a film where it's got 27 different plot strands going off in 57 minutes. I'm fine with this.
But also fair enough. But also that's exactly what I was just about to say, Kev. Is it also, this is 57 minutes long. And what? 37 minutes of it is tied up in this nonsensical plot.
37 minutes of it is tied up and knocked out.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Speaking of which, as we've already mentioned, Michael Medwin gets knocked out several times, as does Danny Green, and it all takes place in one particular location. How long did it take you, or indeed, did you ever work out that was meant to be a boat?
Only when he radioed from the boat and said, I'm on a boat.
At first I thought, is this a boat? And then I thought, no, it's just another exotic little bar. Like Le French bar.
Why do they have a boat in their house?
Well, I mean, it could have been Oakley Court. Have you noticed on the Wikipedia article for this film, it says this is the first film to feature the famous Oakley Court exterior. Well, that's
no, definitely not.
No,
good old Wikipedia.
Yeah, amateurs.
Yeah, but it could, like you say, Ben, it could have been anywhere. It could have been a house. I mean, there was no connection to boats or anything. I didn't spot.
I'm telling you this, Adam. It weren't no boat.
We're getting on
There's no exterior to a boat. But bizarrely, they did use the front room of Oakley Court as the bar that they open the film with.
Mm-hmm.
And the atrium sort of hallway bit is obvious now. And watching with my wife, and she says, "Oh, look, it's that place that's in all these films."
We've spotted that staircase every time. What about when they go to the... I don't know what he is then. What is he? Is he a fence, Muggsy? Or is he... See, now I don't know who's doing the stealing. Is Muggsy the guy that gets rid of the art for him, or is he this guy that peruses and purloins the art?
He's kind of like the middleman, isn't he?
Well,
he's sort of, as you say, sort of like a fence.
Yeah, but he's got a cupboard full of crown jewels.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm confused now. Even more so because he looks like Ronnie Corbett. But now, Muggsy's
no one would suspect Ronnie Corbett, though, would they?
Good point. Yeah.
If Ronnie Corbett came round to look at your crown, you just let him. And then before you know it, it's not there. He's short, he just put it under a big hat.
like a beefeater's hat. Yeah, wouldn't that be ironic?
Like one of those, them big top hats you get on St. Patrick's Day, like Guinness ones. Just got literally the Queen's crown under that.
And Kenny Everett
with two cans strapped to the side.
The class they are.
Does all his stealing on the 17th of March.
Yeah, so for me, Muggsy is definitely my spirit animal because he likes the odd extra tenner and details, and even if he does get all his info from the Ladybird Book of Beheadings, it's just a weird character.
You've just described Smokey there.
Oh, strangely, he looks like Ronnie Corbett.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't think we can let this episode go without mentioning Sid James and his quite extraordinary performance somewhere between the pizza guy from The Simpsons and the Dolmio people. I'm not entirely certain what accent he was meant to be doing. I've gone with Italian, but gentlemen,
it's me, Mario.
Thoughts?
It's me, Sid James. You want a bit of a keep our way?
The Sid James laugh. There is that.
I was just going to say we do.
Yes.
In Italian.
In Italian.
Yeah, it's more of a... But, yeah, it's a dodgy.
It's a choice. It's a choice.
It's perfect. Do you know he got third billing for this film, right? Of all the people that are in this film, Hy Hazell, Michael Medwin, and Sid James, and everyone else is in tiny letters on the poster. It's like he's in it for probably a minute and a half at the beginning, and then probably less than that at the end. It's very odd.
A draw.
I mean, was he a massive star by 50? Must have been, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, he plays a guy. Carlo, what the fuck are you doing this to me? I love him.
To be honest, I really enjoyed his performance, and I didn't think his accent was that bad.
Yeah, it is awful.
I didn't think it was.
Well, it is. So.
Italians don't talk like a pizza. They just don't.
Regardless of how over the top the accent is, I did enjoy seeing him again.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It was nice to see him, and he seemed to be having quite a lot of fun with what he was doing.
Well.
And you can see that, right? Okay, this is actually a good point, is that Sid James, Hy Hazell, and Medwin, right, they were all having a lot of fun. That comes across on the screen. And I like that. Well, you know what I mean? Because sometimes and some of these films we've watched where some of these people are acting it, and you can tell they don't want to be there. But this one, in fact, all of the half a dozen main actors in this. There's 6 main actors, really, isn't there? Before you bring in the police, and they all seem to be having a good time. And it was, and I liked that. It was nice, and they were getting on with the job, regardless of the material they were given or the subject matter that they had to deal with. Because, you know, as ramshackle as it actually was, because it makes no sense. Let's just put that right front and centre. This film makes no sense whatsoever.
That's fair enough. It's just that what they're in is so, like as you say, chaotic and. And when they are endeavouring to tell a story, and it is lovely to watch them. And I don't hate any performance in this, apart from Michael Medwin. But then I just don't think I just don't get him.
Fair enough.
I think that was a new kind of actor that was around in 50 that was exploding at the time. You had your Norman Wisdom, you had your Michael Medwin, you had all these young and up and coming guys, and Bob Monkhouse and the Carry-Ons and whatever. And I think there was just a time when people really enjoyed that, but now I think it's dated. But I don't begrudge them having fun or anything like that, and it was nice to watch. And as I say, I don't hate this film at all. I just got about 30 minutes and I don't understand what's happening. And if you guys want to have a party and film it, then fine, have a party. You don't need to film it. And this isn't a story. I couldn't get my hooks into it. That's my issue with them.
All right then, chaps. I think we've talked about this film enough. It's time to maybe give a few concluding remarks and your rating out of 10. So I'll go first to you, Smokey. What little conclusion and your rating? If we're going on only the including this one, the last 3 films alone, if we are sort of, what I'm doing is sort of putting them in this bracket post Man in Black and Room to Let, of Hammer trying to find their feet with comedy. Okay, if we just include these 3 as, this is the best of the 3, undoubtedly. Granted, it was a very low bar to get over, but they did it. Wonderful to see Hy Hazell back. I'm gutted that I think this is the last time we will see her. That's devastating, but it was just beautiful to see her, and she was radiant, and she, as I said, she stole the film. She owned the film. It is her film. It's too muddled. It's too muddled to be good. It's average, but it's an enjoyable average. It's silly, but I actually enjoyed it. I didn't dislike this. It's between a 5 and a 6 for me. I'm going to give it a 5, but it could go to a 6 if I'm feeling better on a different day. But it's not a bad film, but it's certainly nowhere near the best we've seen, and it's nowhere near the worst we've seen. So yeah, enjoyable silliness. I'll give it that. Adam?
Yeah, I'm not judging the films the way you are. I would say, take the Hammer brand off. Is this a film I'd watch again? No, I don't think I would. It's a film that I will instantly forget after tonight again, like the way I have the last 2 times I watched it. And I will look at it and go, oh, the Lady Craved, what is that? And I'll put it on and I go, oh yeah, it's that thing about the annoying art guy. And yeah, it's fine. I do agree Hy Hazell's great, and it's great to see her back. Despite his accent, I really enjoyed to James popping up and doing Italia thing. But I'll tell you what, it's made me realise this film. And I'm going to give this a 5, by the way, because it's straight down the middle. I didn't hate this film at all. I didn't love it. And it's one that will completely vanish from my memory after this conversation. And I like whimsy. I just need it to make sense. Yeah. That's all. And this just didn't make sense. It's not like a coherent story in any way at all. That said, I did like Hy Hazell, and I think she's brilliant. And I'm desperately sorry that we're not going to see her again. Michael Medwin can kind of do one. And sorry, I'm not getting him at all. But yeah, I mean, it was nice to see Danny Green again, and like you say, they all did look like they're having fun. It's just one of those. I mean, I've certainly seen worse, and I've seen tons and tons and tons of these films. Like you can watch the Falcon series or the Saint series, and there are loads of entries in those series that are worse than this. You know, not worse, but it's just as forgettable, and that's the thing. I think this film is just forgettable. It's not hateful enough to get a low score. It's not good enough to go anywhere above average. That's the problem. It's all right. It's fine. But I tell you what, it's made me realise I really need a banger Hammer film coming soon. I know there's a few on the horizon, but don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm dropping out the project.
He's gone.
It's made me realise. But don't you remember the glory days of when we were going, oh my God, this is really good. Oh, this is really bad. Oh, this is really good. This is really bad.
We've been deprived of
the last few
belter.
Yeah, there's no peaks and troughs at the moment. It's just flatlining. I think like you say, they were trying loads of stuff, and I think it's a real shame that they just weren't connecting somehow. I do know, because I know at least one film that's coming up that's a solid 10. But it's just a shame that they got so much dross in the first few months of 1950. This isn't bad. It's not great, but it's just another one that keeps it on the horizon. It's just another flatlining movie for me.
Kev?
Yep. For me, it's a really enjoyable romp. I would probably give it a 6. It's got a lot of ingredients in there. Again, they're trying to do loads of stuff. There's also some, like Adam's mentioned, that it's like a greatest hits, basically, of characters in front of the camera. Don't forget, behind the camera, we've got Francis Searle directing. We've got another Frank Spencer piece of music. And there's a cue in this film that was driving me nuts, and it's actually the opening bar for I Only Have Eyes for You, which wasn't recorded until 1959 by the Flamingos. So he's basically laying tracks down before he even actually knows it. But then, of course, you've got Walter Jimmy Harvey as well doing photography, and he's doing a pretty good job to say what he's up against, you know. So, yeah. It's a good film. It's got some great lines in it. You know, I love the idea that all this is going around because she wants 300 quid, and then at the end they're rich and they're living it up on £500, which means they can buy themselves their own boat, I guess. And obviously Septimus is a great name anyway. It sounds like a Transformer, so it's a 7.
You've gone to a 7?
Yeah, I've gone to 7 because Septimus sounds like a Transformer.
Do you know what? Because of the way you push that across, I'm definitely giving it a 6 now. I'm moving it up from a 5 to a 6.
Okay, I'm giving it a 3. No, I'm not really.
You joyless wonder.
No, I'd give it somewhere between a 5 and a 6 as well. I don't think I've got a great deal to add to what's been said. I think it's there are enjoyable moments, there are enjoyable performances, but the plot leaves a lot to be desired. It's convoluted, it's nonsensical at times. It's boring at times as well, and repetitive. But the performances alone lift it up. And what I would say is that referenced at least twice in the plot is Dick Barton, and I'll be forever appreciative that the writer has attempted to bring something like Dick Barton with a female character, both in Celia and in this. I mean, that's another, as I say, of the continuations I feel between the two films, and she even gets to hit someone in this one, which must have been almost untold of at the time. So yeah, things to enjoy, but it's, as has been said, it's not going to live long in the memory. So yeah, I'll give it a 6 as well.
Could you all just charge your glasses, because this is our final ride out with Hy Hazell.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I do think she's made an absolute impression upon us. This is someone none of us knew about a year ago, but my God, what a woman!
Hy
Hazell.
Hy Hazell.
And there you have it. Hy Hazell as scintillating as ever. It's a shame that the film isn't quite worthy of her. But I speak for all of us when I say that getting to know Hy has been one of the highlights of making this show so far. Remember, if you'd like to play along with the House of Hammer bingo card, then you can grab it right now. Just follow the link in the show notes of this episode. If you'd like to subscribe to our other shows, then the links to those are also in the show notes. If you'd like to keep abreast of everything happening here, then we are super active on Twitter. Just go on over and follow us at House Hammer Pod. And if you want to get really wordy, then you can email us at scream@houseofhammerpodcast.com. We'll be back very soon with a sizzler of a film about two sisters in love with the same man. Sounds standard, I know, but there are some gloriously dark twists in the tale. Make sure you tune in for that one, it's a corker. And so for this edition, and from me, Adam Roach.
From me, Kev.
From me, Smokey.
From me, Ben Tillison.
Thank you for your visit, and we look forward to welcoming you again very soon to the House of Hammer.